Hey, welcome everyone. So glad that you could join us online as we are going to watch the final episode of season 3 of Smart Justice. And for those that kind of aren't familiar with Smart Justice, there was a group that have been meeting at the Winthrop Rockefeller Institute for many, many years. And one of the things that that group decided was that there needed to be one is collaboration was the way forward in very complex problems like we all address and work in. Number two is
One
there
thing that
needed
is
to be a place to talk about collaborative efforts that are going on in the state, and then proposing some ways forward. And so Smart Justice came out of that group's thoughts, and the charity of many as they funded this thing. And so Smart Justice Season 1 was all around the impact of the family and the importance of the family and justice issues. Season 2 was the opportunity that we have to find individuals that are struggling in district court and try to intervene there, offer them help before things get more serious. And then my co-host this season was Dr. Andrew Baker. Thank you so much for co-hosting and then showing up today and wearing the uniform.
Glad I got the memo.
Yes, yeah. So the cool kids are all wearing camel-colored sport coats, and so do with that what you want. But season 3, Andrew, was about what? What do we want with season 3 of Smart Justice?
Well, we want more safety for our children, and we want places for them to know they will be safe and they will be cared for. We need to see more homes that are open to provide that safety. We need to see more homes that they can return to, where parents have been, as season 1, kind of work through the family issues, that we see more kids going home to safe places, not to unsafe places. And to see how does that collaboration happen among a whole lot of people whose desire is for the greater good to be known. Scripture says, do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. What is the good that needs to be done, and what can that look like? What do those partnerships look like? Does the collaboration look like, which I have for many years now tipped my hat to Restore Hope and in the state of Arkansas for working so diligently to see that collaboration happen. I think with our friends and partners at DCFS and DHS, and then with so many groups around our state, some connected directly to DHS and DCFS, some not, but sharing a common belief that the greater good is possible, and that happens when we have the home. So there's a kid who has to come and care for whatever reason might be, there is a place for them to go, and there's a safe place for them to go. But also that we start to see that in the process of everything we do, mercy is going to triumph over judgment. I've said for a long time about child welfare in our state, we got a lot of really good judges. We need a lot of really more merciful people to understand. I've not met a kid yet who wanted to be in custody of the state. And it has been said, the state makes a really bad parent. That's just the fact, right? But what does it look like for the partnership to happen, for family to be something that a kid knows, that they find that safety, they find that belonging? I think what you're going to see in this episode is some insights into what that is starting to look like in our state. We have not arrived yet. We are on a journey together, but the more we are collaborating together, the more we are working together, I think the more we'll see what was said just a second ago, that mercy will triumph over judgment.
Well, I look forward to this episode. Hey, if you're joining us via Zoom, there is a Q&A panel down there if you wanted to ask some questions, because after the episode, we're going to be joined by Secretary Christy Putnam and Director Tiffany Wright, and we're going to talk about this episode and foster care and foster families afterwards. If you want to go ahead and start typing some questions in there, will come out after the video. If you're on social media, type them in the comments, and we'll do our best to try to field those also. So again, thanks, and let's roll tape.
One thing that has definitely never been missing from the organizations that are part of this working group is the passion that they have for the kids in the state of Arkansas. What I think they were missing is the partnership between all of those different groups. Taking each of the strengths and advantages that these different groups have, putting them at one table is going to really help serve the kids of Arkansas in a way that we've never seen before.
This is Season 3 of the Smart Justice Podcast, a chance at life.
Crime and punishment are hot topics. Are there solutions different than what we're hearing about at a national level?
Kids find themselves just struggling to survive, doing the best they can.
There is a different way to approach justice that has better return on investment.
We don't want people to be dependent. We want to help them get to stability.
That seems to strengthen both law enforcement and courts.
The number one goal in most cases, we want reunification.
And tie that together with community resources and then track the impact to communities and better outcomes.
The best place for a child who's in our foster care system is with a family.
And we're calling this approach Smart Justice.
Smart Justice is a work of Restore Hope and partner organizations. Restore Hope is a software and services organization that helps communities achieve better outcomes for justice and child welfare efforts.
Hey, welcome to this final episode of Season 3 of Smart Justice, where we're talking about the child welfare system and how do we give children and families a chance at life. And so, Andrew, we've been talking about and have interviewed many different stakeholders that are surrounding kind of this child welfare system that provide both support and then have legal responsibilities for families and children once a case is opened. And so really in this episode, we wanted to talk about, so what do you do with all of that? Given just the sheer scope and issues and the number of people involved, what do we do?
These people who are doing so much in so many different ways, you're right. I mean, we've had a number of different people who have come and been a part of this, and grateful and thankful for them doing that. But I think moving forward, there's got to be even more people at the table. There's finding there's still holes, and we know that's true. It can't come down to one person. It can't come down to one organization. It can't come down to one entity. No, it's bigger than that. We need for those who have had a history to come back to the table. We need for there to be new folks at the table, as collectively as a community we're working to see things to be different. This isn't new, right? I mean, in a previous episode, you talked about 2007. Well, we can go back to 1977, right? Then you can go back to 1907. And we didn't all of a sudden find ourselves here. And the reality is, and we're not all of a sudden going to get out. It's not going to all be fixed and all be better tomorrow. But more of the community coming. I think where we go is in even greater collaboration. Where we go is people figuring out they are a piece of that big puzzle that makes up the great state of Arkansas. And I think we're starting to see that. We're starting to see that with efforts like Every Child Arkansas. And it's important. And it's not going to become less. It's actually going to become more. And there'll be more opportunities for people to participate and more opportunities for people to serve.
You know, it was probably about 2 years ago that I first met Phil Goad, who we've interviewed before. Phil was seeing the need to be able to connect the organizations that we're currently a part of, recruiting and supporting foster families, and then any support that was going on for biological families. And he started sharing this kind of vision with me and others, and it was really through his vision and effort that many of these organizations, now almost 30 organizations, have been coming together to try to figure out what would a deeper partnership look like. How could each one of these organizations do more in their own community? Just as Every Child Arkansas was ready to launch after a year and a half worth of meetings from many of these organizations. Governor Sanders was elected and she took office. And in February of 2023, she issued an executive order that included DHS. It ordered DHS, Department of Public Safety, Department of Ed, and this group, Every Child Arkansas, that has about 30 different organizational members in it, to come together to create a new plan for Arkansas for addressing preserving families, reuniting families, and taking care of whatever permanency decision was made by the court after that, so that the best could be made after hard situations. And to execute that executive order, she also brought in Secretary of DHS, Christy Putnam. We had the opportunity to sit down with Secretary Putnam to talk with her about exactly what plan is going to come out of that. Governor Sanders issued an executive order around foster care. Can you talk to us a little bit about what was in that order?
There are three main purposes to it. One is to streamline the process for placement of children with relatives, to improve and streamline the process for children to be adopted from our foster care system, and the last one is to enhance services for children who are in foster care, but they're going to turn 18 and what's called age out of foster care, to really create a better service array for those kids who are going to be on their own and were part of the foster care system. I think we're fortunate in that there's already been a lot of great partners doing a lot of very hard, very creative and innovative work in the space of foster care. I think one of the things that's hardest for us to wrap our brain around is we've got this number that's usually between 4,100 and 4,200 kids in out-of-home care. That's a big number when you think about it from a statewide perspective. What I really want to see us do is break that down county by county, get into the communities, and have communities understand that they are the solution for helping families become stronger, for helping families reunify with those children, for supporting the caseworkers who are part of the foster care system. And really, when you break it down to a county number and it's 42 kids, it's much more manageable and people feel like there's something they can actually do about improving the services to our families and really making families stronger.
If you're one of the people in the communities they've come across this podcast and are wondering what they could do in their own community, what would that look like for them? What would you suggest they do?
Anything small, anything larger. The first thing I would say is sign up to be a foster family. We do need more foster families. The best place for a child who's in our foster care system is with a family. And so you can sign up to be a foster family. It's not for everyone. So if you don't feel like you are led to foster, then you can support a foster family or encourage. You might have a next door neighbor who's been thinking about it. You can encourage them to connect, reach out to the Every Child Arkansas website. Everyone who goes on that website and inquires can be connected to a live person who can tell them all about the process of becoming foster families. The other thing is you can support your family services workers, the caseworkers who are part of the Department of Human Services. They have a hard job to do, and they deal with the most difficult of circumstances, and they go back in every day, and they're constantly working with families who, sometimes there are no good options for some of the children. And so take them cookies, write them a note, support and encourage them, pray for them. These are all ways that we can help with our frontline staff.
What about the biological families? I've heard you before say that prevention is real important.
I would really like to see us focus on prevention in all circumstances. A lot of times intensive in-home supports are what's needed, and so really identifying those families who may be at risk for their children leaving their home, working with them sooner, providing substance use counseling, substance recovery counseling, providing. Sometimes it's as simple as some additional resources that are needed, whether those are monetary resources or social resources, connections to supports in the community. So that prevention can look a lot of different ways. The biggest thing that we can do, in my opinion, is really connect all of our resources across not just DHS, but across all of our agencies and across all of our community partners. Our children and families don't come to us in pieces, but we budget and plan for them as if they do. And that's my biggest thing, is to just really be interconnected as much as we possibly can so that we are one team serving these families and children.
Have you
had any ideas around how to connect agencies kind of in that operational way?
So we have, and we were actively working on some of them. The executive order on improving foster care pulls in the Department of Public Safety and the Department of Education as well. We have a great partnership with the Department of Education, and I think that that's, since most kids are in school or they're going to be in school at some point, it's a natural place for us to really make sure that parents know of the resources that are available to them in their communities. And we'd like to partner more strongly in a more vigorous way with the individual school districts and schools themselves on how do we provide not just information, but how do we actively connect and get into the schools and have our folks there to be that warm connection. The governor has encouraged all of the cabinets to think holistically about the services we provide, and the answer of just because we've done it that way, that's how we've always done it, doesn't fly anymore. So we're figuring out new and creative ways that public safety and DHS can work together to perhaps make the investigation and removal process, if it has to happen, a more kind and gentle process for the family, to really make sure that they understand that we're there to support them and that this is not intended to be punitive, although it's going to feel that way when children do have to leave their homes.
So if I wanted to get involved in trying to help families in my community, what's that look like?
Well, we're excited about Every Child Arkansas. One of the biggest reasons, there are a lot of reasons, but one of the biggest reasons is we've never had one place, one website that anyone can go to and submit an inquiry, just a question even, and get information, get connected to information on fostering or how to help support foster families, how to help support families, birth families, and caseworkers. And now we've got this one place. People can go to it. People can go to the Facebook page, the Instagram, like and share, and there are all kinds of ways to connect people, but it's through that one-stop shop, the everychildarkansas.org website.
The way forward in Arkansas is through collaborative efforts of both agencies and community-based organizations. And as we talked earlier, and we've heard from Dr. Phil Goad, who was really the catalytic figure who started this Every Child Arkansas effort. I can remember, Phil, the first time that we met was on telephone, I believe, and you were talking about this collective impact action that needed to happen amongst all the different child welfare agencies out there, and now it's become something called a network called Every Child Arkansas. But what led you to start thinking that we needed to do this collaborative effort?
I've had the opportunity, the blessing of being on the board for the Christian Alliance for Orphans, and it's an organization actually that was formed here in Arkansas over 15 years ago. Dennis Rainey with Family Life called together about 36 leaders from around the country and said we need to leave our logos and our egos at the door and start working on behalf of children and families. During that season of time, one of the leaders in CAFO, Jason Weber, started a movement called More Than Enough. And their vision was more than enough for children and families before, during, and beyond foster care in every county in the United States. I realized that we could do that here. We began to see that there's a number of organizations who could catch that vision and would come together and say, yeah, let's work together. We're better together if we would come together. So that launched this network, Every Child Arkansas.
What are the goals of Every Child Arkansas?
We have a shortage of foster families in this state. We also have a challenge in our state in that it is the foster families drop out at a pretty high rate. We have almost 60% of families close every year in the state of Arkansas. So just to stay even, we have to recruit and train and license over 900 families every year just to stay even. That's not even including getting the more that we need to do what we're trying to accomplish. And we also have a challenge with that in this state, there's a pretty high percentage of children who don't get to go back with their mom and dad when they're removed. Only a little over 40% of children that are removed get to go back with their actual biological mom and dad. So those are some of the things we're targeting here initially.
How is Every Child Arkansas going to address those issues?
We're doing a collective impact movement, and that's a way that communities around the country for a number of years have come together, decided to work together to make a change in the system in their community for a wide variety of causes. And we're using that same process, which starts with a shared vision. So we have a county by county approach where we have a team of people that is taking each county, trying to understand who's already working there, and then we're in the process of convening them and saying, how could we work together? What are the things that we're doing to find families, to train them, to support them? And I think one key part of our strategy is going to be engaging churches around the state, because this support for families, we refer to it as wraparound support, is something that will help them know that they're not alone when they take children into their homes, that there's other people that are there to do some simple things like bring them meals, to go through the process, which is pretty minimal, of a driver's record test, a background check, so that you could go pick up children and bring them home from school, that you could keep them over a weekend and give a break for the families. And we find that when that happens, when there's wraparound support from within the faith communities, the percent of families that feel like they could stay in it longer, that increases. And then what you have is you have more experienced foster families who are able to do a better job in taking care of the kids that come into their home, and they're stronger and more equipped to do that.
What could we expect from this collaborative approach now?
Well, what I'm hoping for, what we're hoping for, is that really for the first time we're going to have organizations from around the state who have come together, agreed to a plan, and all of them agreeing that they're going to do their part in the plan. And what we hope to see, what we expect to see, is to move to an increased number of foster families and correct some of the imbalances that we have in the state.
So Andrew, one of the interesting and I think a real strategic partnership that occurred in this Every Child Arkansas early discussion was, how is it that we could really collaborate with DCFS on recruiting more foster families, and even this idea of using technology to find ideal placements in each community. So, and there are layers to all of that, but we were able to partner with an organization that had developed some recruitment technology, basically just using this very sophisticated kind of marketing software for us to be able to go through and push ads and content to folks who could be foster parents for the children that are in their community. So we had the opportunity to sit down with Jerome Strickland, who's the director for the Contingent Arkansas, who runs that technology.
The contingent model is an approach that was tested in Oregon, and over 5 years, they were successful to the extent where over 8,000 families and 32,000 volunteers raised their hand and said, hey, I want to join this effort and help serve and cater to and show hospitality to these children and their families. The state hadn't seen that before until they outsourced it to this group. Those aspects of the strategy were welcomed into our amazing state, and now we're deploying it in a new way. So what are those strategies? The strategies are the components in the internet, such as websites, social media, etc. The same sort of influence marketing, the same sort of efforts that really influence us to buy more goods from an Amazon or Walmart.com. We take those pieces and the algorithms to find people that look like great advocates for this type of work, help them understand as far as grow awareness, help influence them to think deep and long about what would my life look like if I were to just raise my hand and do something small. And we'll lead them on a journey to say, well, at some point, you may be at the point where you raise your hand and say, I want to apply to welcome a child into my home. We first look at the overall audience and how do people consume information here. And once you understand that, you step on each of these platforms and target audiences in Facebook, on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, what have you. And you funnel them to the point where they are eventually led to a website, everychildarkansas.org, right? And it helps guide the individual via their zip code to say, within your area, here are options in which you can volunteer or by which you can actually apply to become a foster family. And if that isn't enough and someone doesn't want to make a decision based on a website, there are numbers and opportunities for our team. We have a customer experience team that is very highly trained in empathy and how to walk someone through the journey of considering how might I be involved in child welfare. The people that are on that website are current foster parents, and they have a deep understanding of the system to say, you don't have to fear this journey. We're here to walk you through. I'm an individual here in this state that has done it before you, and I can tell you the impact it has on the child, but even more so the impact it has on you and your family for the good. So how do we know who might be a great family just in looking at over 3 million people within our state? Well, we have a few hunches, and those hunches are gained by using the same algorithms any other tool, again, online does. How Netflix recommends the next video or movie we like to watch. In studying the individuals that have achieved permanency for a child within 2 years, and permanency means they actually adopted that child or they helped them reunify with their home, which is the number one goal in most cases. We want reunification. If they're able to achieve either of those, we look at what are the nuances or things about you that we can see from afar, and let's build profiles of similar families. Let's find those families that look like you across the state and speak to them. Speak to them digitally, speak to them over the phone, speak to them via mail, at events, at the county fair, at their place of worship, if that makes sense. We engage, and what we found is there is a pattern that we can pick up on great individuals all across our state and make them aware of the great need in front of us. Ideal placement is the idea that you reduce the amount of trauma that happens with a child when they're removed from their home temporarily by keeping them close to familiar entities around them. So the first ideal placement is to find a family member that's capable, willing, and able to take the child in and care for him or her during a period of time. The second most ideal placement is a fictive kin. And just for those that don't understand what that term means, it could be someone in the community, their church, their school, or someplace else, even a best friend's parent that knows that child and can show that connection with that child. They can be a fictive kin and also take the child in. The third best case scenario or ideal placement is staying within that child's county. Why? Because if you'd imagine something were to happen in your or my family, overnight, of course, I am removed and I need to be cared for a period of time, then I wouldn't also want to lose. For me, I went to church here, I had my school and my friends. My neighborhood had some great people, parents and families and friends of mine. I wouldn't want to leave all those individuals at one time while I'm dealing with the trauma of being removed temporarily. So it's idea to keep that individual close. I keep them with certified individuals until we could, one, either reunify or two, place them in a permanent home that adopts them.
So Andrew, you've been involved in child welfare in many different ways for a long time. And so I'd just like to get your opinion on all that's happening now and the potential that we have to actually make things better.
Well, I mean, one, the more the conversation is in front of people, the better. The more people who are invited to the table, the better. The more people see that it's the community's responsibility, the more the church, I would say, in the state of Arkansas, the church has a long history when it comes to being a part of child welfare in this state. I'm excited because of the number of folks. And one of the early meetings of Every Child Arkansas, and I had come to that meeting and I went home and my wife was asking me, well, hey, what do you think? And my answer was, the conversation is good and it's moving in a right direction. But any move in the right direction is a move in the right direction. There's been this awareness that is made. There's been a bigger story told, been more people invited to the table, but those who have been doing it will keep doing it. Don't give up, because that one matters. The little dude in my house tonight, he matters. The dude at your house, he matters, right? But we're going to have to keep moving. And there's a lot of attention, and this episode has shown a lot of that attention coming with an executive order, and attention coming with Every Child Arkansas. And that's awesome, and I am excited, but I also think we need to be realized, let's keep going. Let's go make mercy triumph over judgment. Let's keep seeing more families reunited. Let's continue to partner with organizations like 100 Families who are truly changing outcomes in communities and give the support necessary for that to happen. My hope, my prayer is that when we're looking back 10 years from now, we'll look back and say, that became a moment of substantial, measurable change in the state of Arkansas. Will there still be work to be done? I don't think there's going to be a day that I can just say, yeah, we don't need any of that anymore, because we will, and that's part of it. But I have a real excitement in knowing there's more people in the conversation. We need to invite, and even invite it more to be, and it's not just to be in the conversation, but to be participants for the greater good of mercy to be known.
You know what excites me, Andrew, having been in this for a bit too. One, the governor issued this executive order and brought Secretary Christy Putnam in to create a plan to support and strengthen families. Two is, we've now got technology entering the state that we didn't have before, and technology allows things to become easier and also to scale.
To hear more of the heart behind this executive order, Paul spoke with Governor Sanders.
Governor, thanks so much for sitting down with us to talk about families and children. And one of the first acts being governor was to issue an executive order. Why?
Doing a much better job of taking care of the kids across the state of Arkansas is vitally important. We have about 4,100 kids that are in the foster care system here in the state of Arkansas, and we don't have nearly enough families to take care of them. So we created and started this, through the executive order, a working group that will help us recruit more families, train and prepare those families, keep more kids out of the foster care system in the first place, and really streamline the process so we can do a better job as a state taking care of kids in Arkansas.
Governor, you've personally, well, I know because my wife was at a event that you were volunteering at one time, the Project Zero event. So where does kind of your personal passion around this, where is that driven from?
I don't think there's anything harder to see than a kid who doesn't have a safe place, that doesn't have a family, that doesn't have someone that loves them and is advocating for them. As a parent, I can't imagine my kids being in an environment where they don't feel like they are loved and cared for. And that, unfortunately, is what happens all too often here in the state of Arkansas with these kids. And so any opportunity we have to help these kids feel loved and taken care of, we want to do that. And I want my kids to see that. And so when we have volunteered, we try to take them with us as much as possible so that they can see the difference and hopefully be encouraged to help other people too.
What would success look like to you?
I mean, I think success is those 4,100 kids that are in the system either never ending up there in the first place or having a family that takes them in, loves for them, cares for them, and advocates them for the long term.
So Arkansans that may want to do something but not know
exactly what to do, what message would you have for them?
I think one of the biggest things is be willing and step up and volunteer, participate. Even if you're not somebody who can take a kid in as a foster parent, there are still a lot of things you can do and organizations you can volunteer your time or give financially to those organizations to really help out other families who are able to take those kids in.
And Governor, you named 4 organizations, 3 agencies, and then Every Child Arkansas. That was unusual, at least in my experience. Why did you put Every Child Arkansas in as one of the organizations to come up with the plan?
Well, I think you have to have somebody to really lead the effort. One of the things I think that has kept us from doing a better job is not coordinating with all of the different organizations out there. And so bringing everybody to the table, having that collaboration and coordination through Every Child Arkansas will make such a huge difference. To have one organization kind of leading and bringing all the players to the table, I think is going to give us the type of success that we're looking for. One thing that has definitely never been missing from the organizations that are part of this working group is the passion that they have for the kids in the state of Arkansas. What I think they were missing is the partnership between all of those different groups. So taking a passion that is so evident and matching that with a partnership of all of the different organizations that are kind of working in a similar space, I think gives us a lot more power to be successful. Taking each of the strengths and advantages that these different groups have, putting them at one table is going to really help serve the kids of Arkansas in a way that we've never seen before.
Hey, well, thanks so much. Andrew and I are joined by Secretary Putnam and Director Wright here, and so I wanted to thank you all for what you're doing here in the state of Arkansas, and also for agreeing to do something like this. Really do appreciate it. And so, Secretary Putnam, we heard about the governor's executive order, and we filmed all of these clips a number of months ago. And so there's been some additional collaborative work on that executive order. Could you just kind of update us a little bit around what that work was like, and then what we could hope to expect in 2024?
Sure. So we, the 3 work groups came out with 11 recommendations, and the work groups are going to continue to meet to develop additional strategies, and the ones that were included in the recommendations, especially around creating a resource platform, reducing barriers for families to be able to access, more of our public assistance as they need it, really additional primary prevention that's evidence-based, and just really focusing in on what people can do to support foster families and to help recruit and retain. But more broadly, it's looking across agencies and specifically across DHS to see what are the services we can bring together so that we're serving the families holistically and not in pieces, as you've heard me say a couple times.
That's great. And because we did film this a number of months ago, what is the current situation right now with number of children in foster care? Because I believe when we filmed this, there were about 4,200 children in foster care.
Yeah, so today there are currently approximately 3,900 children in foster care in the state. We've been really working hard to make sure kids are safe, but also with families, and working to achieve that permanency, whether that's with an appropriate family member or fictive kin or through adoption. And so that number has decreased, but we're also working with our communities and in collaboration on that frontline prevention and making sure that we are leaving children in the home and they're safe when they are there with their families, but how do we connect them to those supports?
In episode 1, we kind of talked about the fact that DCFS actually serves more families in their home than you do in foster care. And so what are the numbers like there just in general? I can't remember what they were back in episode 1.
Why not, Paul? I'm just kidding. No, so the last state fiscal year, we served approximately 5,000 children in their homes with their parents remaining in their community.
Right, that's great. And that's if I remember the last annual report, that was quite successful as far as preventing kids from having to come into care.
Yeah, that's right. When we can connect both parents and children to their community and make sure they have those supports, so some of the work that's happening through 100 families or with our intensive in-home providers, we can successfully keep them with their parents safely and make sure they have what they need. So when DCFS walks away, they can continue on and have that stability that they need.
Right.
And really, I was just going to add. The main reason that people can't access services, one of the main reasons is people don't know what services are out there, and that's a lot of the work that Restore Hope and 100 Families is doing is connecting people. But Dr. Baker and I were chatting just before this about some of our youth in DYS and certainly our families at DCFS. Many times it's just letting the community know what the needs are, because it's not necessarily can you foster, but can you help support foster families? Can you help support our frontline staff? So there are pieces of this that the community can step in and serve and help, but it's just the knowledge of what the needs are.
And I think that for every one of these SmartJustice efforts, this is the third one now. We've always kind of been promoting something. It has to be together. It has to be collaborative. And so in this one, as we were kind of doing the ideation, the brainstorming on the front end, is what did we want? And I think primarily what the state needs, in my opinion right now, is we need foster families. And we need to help those that are serving be able to serve longer, so be able to support them. So Every Child Arkansas now is one place. It's that single place that you could go to find out. So if you're listening here and you were interested in trying to help, then everychildarkansas.org is the place to go to find out how to become a foster family, or the organizations that are in your community.
Yeah, I think it's using that website to find the organizations to plug in and figure out how you can engage with what's going on in your community and with kids in your community, right? So, and like you said, Paul, the need for foster care is great if we have to bring them into foster care. For foster homes is great if we have to bring them into foster care, but when we can't put them with their family members, right? So it's also about supporting those family members.
Why don't we just build more orphanages?
Because kids deserve to be with a family. Family comes first, and most times in the families we're working with, their family's already supporting them, but they need more support. They need guidance, maybe connection to resources. But kids don't do well with emergency shelters and shift staff and people who don't get to connect with them and build relationships. But we first need to look at their family members or fictive kin, so school teachers, counselors, coaches, because those are the people who really know them.
Wait, your goal's 40% placed with fictive kin?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, and so that kind of follows on with a family-like setting, placement in a family-like setting?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
But let's go back to what you just said for the people in the back, this orphanage idea. I've never met a person who wants to live there.
That's right.
And for those of us who have been blessed with family, sometimes we go to these, what I call easy cop-out answers. This stuff's complicated, and it's hard. But the kid deserves it. And so to say, well, we'll just have orphanages. Show me one that's ever worked. I mean, I guess Little Orphan Annie's a great story, but that place was pretty dysfunctional. When you realize what you're talking about, and it goes back to what the secretary said a while ago, everybody's got a role they can play.
That's right.
One of the things I appreciate about Every Child Arkansas is you don't have to open your home.
That's right.
But I sure hope you open your heart. Because at the end of the day, for the sake of the kid, we got to move this stuff past a transaction and be transformational. And we got to see transformation in the hearts of the kids and the hearts of our communities. People say, well, about the parents. Yeah, we got to see some transformation in parenting too. But I'll introduce you to my kids. They probably say Dad could use a little transformation himself, right? So this idea, we got to stop some false narratives that are not helping kids. And the truth of the matter is, if a kid woke up this morning, I don't care where they are, finding them a place of permanency matters.
That's right.
And most of the people in this room watching this, and most of the people watching online, all have individual stories of a kid. Well, don't forget that kid, and let's not try to use easy outs, because this is just not an easy situation.
Yeah, and when you're going through one of the hardest times in your life, why would you want to be with strangers and not with people who know you? People who can pour into you, can, can pour into your parents and support you through a hard time. Like, foster care is not easy. And you'll have nobody. It feels like a desert. I think you've said that before. It's a desert.
It is. And I had a group of students yesterday, just in a university class, who made a presentation. And what was interesting is how much a teacher can do. Their whole presentation was in child welfare, what a teacher can do. And then to get a call this morning from a teacher who was asking, there's not really anything I can do, but could you help this kid? And it's like, well, actually, there's a lot you can do. And thankfully, I'm a little more versed, thanks to students yesterday who reminded me of all the things that you could do, right?
That's right.
Though as I said to the teacher this morning, this young lady is not contacting me. She's contacting you because you've got the relationship.
Yes.
I don't.
I would say that after interviewing y'all and the others for the season, one of the things that is quite apparent is that that it is very difficult. If you're involved and your staff are involved, some bad things have occurred, and it's with families and with relationships, and therefore it becomes very complex to try to sort those things out. The best place for that care and the healing and hopefully the reunification and stability of that family to occur again is in deep, caring relationships. We get wounded in relationship, and we're healed and have joy in relationships. And so that's why it's a community problem, and therefore is going to require a community solution.
That's right.
It is. And, we focus a lot on the best place for the child is in a family-like setting, in a home with people they know. But there's another benefit to that we don't talk about as much, although it is as important, and that is when we're working toward reunification, the parents have the ability or have the benefit of seeing a trusting relationship that the child may have with that other person. They can, learn from being around, if there's a relationship between the foster family and the birth family, then there's positive interaction there, and there's the potential for that family to heal as a family unit because they are seeing this relationship. And it's hard, it's not easy, because there's a lot of emotion, of course, involved in this. But when you see a family unit that's working well together, and that parent wants to get there, they step in with their child in that foster family, and the foster family can really do some incredible mentoring and relationship and trust building.
That goes long term.
Yes, it does. It lasts long term.
We have a few questions here that are conveniently right behind me, so I can't read them, Tiffany. I don't know if...
Yeah, I can. You want me to read them for
Please.
you? Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the first question
It's
is...
probably for you.
It is. Yeah. Some resource parents worry that communication will diminish even more when homes are being opened by agencies other than DCFS. And how would you address this? Well, so I would respectfully tell whoever is worried that I disagree. And the reason that I disagree is because the benefit that comes with opening with another agency outside of DCFS is that there is a closer relationship built with that agency, and that agency has designated people to walk alongside the foster family or the resource parent, and then they also then work closely with DCFS. And so it's more collaboration, it's more support for the resource parent, and honestly more support for also DCFS. Like, we can't do everything. Everything can't be DCFS's responsibility. Right. And I know we all hear about the frustrations of opening homes and not getting phone calls returned and all those different things. This helps with that. It alleviates that.
And I think Derek runs Connected. We have some Connected partners that are here. I can't see him here in the room with us, but
he's hiding.
What I've heard Dr. Brown say is your families stay longer, and you're able to provide some additional care. I think it is that wraparound support that the agencies, private placement agencies, are able to give that show it's a good partnership that
Yeah.
you've got.
And there's a very deep community connection with that, and that, to Tiffany's point, that allows DCFS to, to get out and do their visits and do the supportive services that are needed for the families and for the kids in care. So it really is a win-win, and we have a lot that's placed on DCFS. Our frontline staff, try and be as responsive as they can. I think the other part of the work group, the continued work group efforts that you will see, is working towards streamlining the opening process, the licensing process, and all of that.
Oh, and we're really excited about that
Yes,
because
we
have
are.
a foster parent training that started across the state, a new foster parent training that's starting across the state, and the feedback we're getting is that families enjoy it. It's not as long. It gives them more of what they need to be able to meet the needs of the children that we're placing in their homes. So we're excited about that work.
We have more questions.
I do. They're all for me. Or you can help. What efforts would you say lead to the decrease in the current number of youth in foster care? More foster homes, reunification, prevention services. I would say all of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's all working together to impact that decrease. So achieving permanency, whether that is reunification, guardianship, adoption, but also utilizing prevention services in our communities, and communities collaborating to meet the needs of both children, foster families, parents, connecting to services. All of those things are impacting that.
As one of the things that we've been looking at in the data that DCFS is producing is the number of children that are able to be placed in home county if they're not with kin.
Right.
And that's going to be another very complex thing that we have to work on because when a child comes into care, they have to be placed somewhere.
That's right.
And if there's not an available home, so we're going to have to raise foster families up across the state if we're going to be able to try to keep kids with their friends.
That's
and
right.
School
In their schools and
yeah.
continuing learning, and that's a very important issue. Our governor's very focused on education, for all kids, and especially our kids in care. When we have to send them out of county, then it does disrupt where they are with their education.
Excellent.
We have more questions.
Does, and I don't know, this one, Paul, you might have to help with this one. Okay. Does ECA do any direct in-person recruiting like organizations do? We at Foster Love set up booths at different events, speak to churches, and hold informational meetings. Does ECA do any of this, and why not?
I think the partners that make up the Every Child Arkansas, the individual partners all have their own recruitment strategies. There are some discussions amongst many members of ECA right now are talking about is like, how do we help the individual partners recruit? But we were just having a conversation over here about I was a pastor at a large church that did a lot of recruiting for many, many years, and I saw that in general, so no one send me any hate mail, but in general, the ladies were quicker. They understood. They're looking at the heart gallery, and they look at the picture of the child, and they're like, that child needs, I'm going to find a way to try to provide. And the guys are like, I'm trying to put a roof over a couple of other kids, so there were generally the father, it was about a 12-month journey. And
right.
So are some things that we could do to message directly to the unique questions maybe that the man has that are there? But I guess to reiterate the question, no, ECA doesn't have any just a direct kind of recruiting where they're setting it up.
Right, but there are more than 24 partners under ECA who, to your point, they do participate in all those activities on a very regular basis. So, those groups are out there, and it's all under the umbrella of Every Child Arkansas.
Yeah.
Totally. How would you find out if we are eligible to be foster parents if one of the adults has a history of felony convictions 5+ years ago? So I think the first thing to do would be to go to the Every Child Arkansas website and connect to an organization and let someone have some conversation with whoever you are about that criminal history and, let them walk you through that.
We do have a question about reunification. You know, and it's about requirements for parents who are trying to reunify with their children. And, you know, I would just, and certainly Tiffany chime in, but I would just say that, you know, each case is unique and different. And, you know, our caseworkers try to work very hard with community partners and with the families to identify, you know, how can we be helpful and supportive in families trying to reunify. So I don't know if you want to touch on that at all.
Yeah, and I think also just adding in there about reunification is it is about that unique family situation that caused the reasons for removal. But I also think that we are working as an agency with our partners around what does it take to reunify and how do we do that safely and appropriately. And so, again, case
In each specific case.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that does get hard to answer.
Well, and I think in fairness, we have to acknowledge in this conversation that it's unique to the courtroom as well.
That's right.
It absolutely is.
You know, it's your question. That question might be answered with A in one county and B in another county,
That's right.
and I think that just has to be realized. And it's not a universal one-fits-all answer to that question.
On
That's
multiple fronts.
That's right.
Correct.
We're almost out of time. Any parting nuggets of wisdom or information you'd like to share?
I know I have DCFS staff across the state, and so I just want to give a shout out to my DCFS staff. I think sometimes they get a bad rap for things that are not going right and mistakes that they have made or they didn't call someone back, but they are the most committed, compassionate group of people, and if you just take 1 second to get to know them, you would learn that pretty quickly about all of DCFS. We care about kids, and we're doing the very best we can to serve those kids and families.
Episode 2 or 3, I think we had some of your
That's
staff
right.
from Polk County that were on.
And I'm going to tag on to that and just say, you know, we're taking a one DHS approach to serving all of our families, including our families who are working closely with DCFS. And, you know, we have, in visiting with staff across the state, I've had the blessing of being able to meet a lot of our DCF folks who are on front line, our program assistants, you know, our family service workers, our area directors, and it's just incredible, not just the DCFS workers, but the staff in the county offices across the state who they cover for each other. You know, they have kids coming into the office sometimes, and you've got a worker who needs to go somewhere. So it's an incredible team effort, and we're trying to broaden that so that one DHS means that we are not thinking Medicaid and youth services in DCFS, but we are thinking we have a family in front of us. They have needs. How are we all going to rise to the occasion and meet those needs? And so that's, you know, I appreciate the executive order that's brought all the partners to, you know, around the table as well, because together we are so much stronger and so much better at having great ideas and being able to be supportive of our families.
That's great. Well, thanks again for joining us. And
Thanks for
Dr.
letting
Baker,
us join.
thanks for
Yes.
hosting this season with us. And there are many people here that you can't see that were in the magazine, on the podcast, a part of doing such good work around the state, as well as joining us here online. So thanks so much. And season 3 is a wrap. We will see you again for season 4 in the spring, where we're going to talk about juvenile justice. Until then, we'll sign off.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.